Every morning, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, we, the ski patrol of Mount Hargreave, would find them, a set of unidentifiable tracks on the Frostwood Trail, a path long closed and forgotten. They were unlike any ski tracks we had ever seen, deep and erratic, leading into the heart of the old, gnarled forest that bordered the resort. My curiosity grew each day, a gnawing obsession that I couldn't shake off. I was the newest member of the patrol, a rookie still earning my stripes. The others warned me about the dangers of the Frostwood Trail, of avalanches and hidden crevasses, but the mystery of the tracks called to me. One fateful morning, armed with nothing but my ski gear and a reckless determination, I decided to follow the tracks. The air was crisp and bitingly cold, and a thin layer of mist clung to the ground. The trail was narrow, framed by towering pines and firs, their branches heavy with snow. As I ventured deeper, the world around me fell silent, the usual sounds of nature eerily absent. The tracks twisted and turned, leading me into a part of the mountain I had never seen before. It was a desolate place, the trees older, their bark gnarled and twisted, as if in pain. The snow here was deeper, untouched by human presence. I felt a sense of foreboding, a whisper in the back of my mind urging me to turn back, but I pushed forward. Eventually, the tracks led to a clearing, in the center of which stood an old, dilapidated cabin. Its windows were dark, its wood weathered and rotting, but it was the symbols carved into the door that made my blood run cold, strange, archaic symbols that seemed to writhe and twist before my eyes. I approached the cabin, my heart pounding in my chest. The door creaked open at my touch, revealing a room shrouded in darkness. The air was thick with the smell of mold and something else, something metallic and sharp. I fumbled for my flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. The inside of the cabin was a shrine to some unspeakable horror. The walls were covered in more symbols, and in the center of the room, there was an altar made of stone, stained with dark, dried liquid. On the altar lay an assortment of objects, bones, feathers, and a book bound in what looked like human skin. I felt a wave of nausea and terror wash over me. This was no mere cabin. It was a place of dark rituals, a secret kept hidden by the mountain. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The tracks, the cabin, they were all part of something sinister, something ancient and malevolent. As I turned to leave, a sound stopped me dead in my tracks, a low, guttural growl coming from the shadows. I shone my flashlight towards the sound, and that's when I saw them. Eyes glowing red in the darkness, watching me. I ran, terror lending speed to my legs. I could hear them behind me, the sound of their pursuit a relentless echo in the still air. I didn't stop until I burst out onto the main trail. The sounds of the resort a jarring contrast to the nightmare I had just escaped. I never spoke of what I saw in the cabin, knowing that no one would believe me. But every morning the tracks were there, a chilling reminder of the hidden, sinister reality of Mount Hargreave. As time passed, I tried to forget, to bury the memories. But the mountain had other plans. One morning I awoke to find the tracks leading to my own door, the symbols from the cabin etched into the wood. The truth was inescapable. I was part of the mountain's secret now, a keeper of its dark legacy. The tracks were not just a mystery to be solved. They were a warning, a sign of something ancient and unspeakable that called Mount Hargreave its home, and it had chosen me as its next acolyte. The world was silent at the peak of Serpent's Tail, a mountain that bore the weight of many stories, some whispered in awe, others in fear. I stood there, a solitary figure against the vast expanse of snow and sky, the cold biting at my cheeks, my breath forming clouds of mist in the frigid air. Skiing was not just a sport to me, it was a calling, a way to touch the sublime, and today, Serpent's Tail was my altar. As I looked down the treacherous slope, my heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. This was no ordinary run. The slope was steep, the turns were sharp, and the risk of avalanche loomed like a silent predator. But the thrill of conquering it, of proving myself against nature's might, was irresistible. With a deep breath, I pushed off. The snow beneath my skis whispered promises of glory as I descended. The wind tore at me, but I embraced its challenge, carving through the snow with precision and grace. I was in my element, a master of my craft. But in an instant, everything changed. A patch of ice, unseen and treacherous, caught the edge of my ski. I lost control, tumbling headfirst into the snow. The world spun wildly, a kaleidoscope of white and gray, before plunging me into darkness. When I awoke, the pain was immediate and overwhelming. My head throbbed viciously, a stark reminder of my fall. I touched my forehead and felt the sticky warmth of blood. Panic set in, a fierce and primal thing. I was alone, injured and disoriented. I tried to stand, but the world tilted alarmingly. The trees around me seemed to warp and twist, their branches clawing at the sky. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, forming shapes that were almost human. The silence of the mountain was gone, replaced by a low, menacing hum. I knew I needed to find my way back. But which way was back? The trail markers, once familiar guides, now appeared foreign and mocking. I pushed on, my movements uncertain, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. As the hours passed, the temperature dropped, and the mountains seemed to close in around me. The pain in my head grew, each heartbeat a hammer against my skull. My thoughts became fragmented, a jumbled mess of memories and hallucinations. I saw faces in the snow, heard voices on the wind, each more sinister than the last. I remembered a cabin I had seen earlier, a potential sanctuary. With the last of my strength, I made my way toward it, each step a battle against the growing darkness in my mind. The cabin, when I finally reached it, was like a beacon in the night. I collapsed inside, my body shaking uncontrollably, but the relief was short-lived. In the dim light of the cabin, a figure sat hunched over the fireplace. My heart froze. It was me, a mirror image, but twisted, haunted. He spoke, his voice a chilling echo of my own. "You can't leave," he said. "The mountain owns you now." The realization was a gut punch. This was more than a physical journey. It was a descent into my own psyche, a confrontation with the darkest parts of myself. I was battling not just for survival, but for my sanity. When the search team found me at dawn, I was a shell of myself, my eyes wide with an unspeakable terror. They said it was a miracle I was alive. But as I left the mountain, its peaks shrouded in mist, a part of me remained behind, lost in the endless white. The mountain had shown me the fragile line between reality and madness. I had escaped its frozen grasp, but the whispers of that night, the echoes of my own fractured self, would haunt me forever. The serpent's tail had given me my life back, but it had taken something in return, a piece of my soul, forever entwined with the winter wilderness. I always found solace in the silent embrace of the snow-covered woods, a world away from the relentless chatter of society. The hush of the forest, blanketed in white, offered a pure isolation I craved, a place where my thoughts were my only companions. But as I clipped into my skis that fateful morning, a cold shiver ran down my spine, an omen of the horror that awaited me in the serene yet deceptive wilderness. The first few hours were blissful, my skis carving a lone path through the pristine snow. The only sound was the rhythmic crunch beneath me, harmonizing with my steady breaths that turned into visible puffs of steam in the cold air. The tall pines stood like silent sentinels, their branches heavy with snow, forming a cathedral of nature that seemed untouched by time. But as the day wore on, a subtle unease crept into my mind. I noticed tracks parallel to my own, too large to be from any animal I knew. They wove in and out of my sight, sometimes disappearing only to reappear a few meters away. My heart began to race, each thud echoing in my ears louder than the last. The isolation I once cherished now felt suffocating, a prison of white from which there seemed to be no escape. The tracks were not the only sign of my unseen companion. I heard movements, distant yet distinct, the crunch of snow under weight, the snap of a branch. Every sound was a whisper of dread that crawled under my skin. I told myself it was just my imagination, the isolation playing tricks on my mind, but deep down, I knew I was not alone. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the forest transformed. Shadows stretched across the snow, turning the once peaceful landscape into a twisted maze of fear and confusion. The cold bit at my face, but it was nothing compared to the icy grip of terror that clenched my heart. I skied faster, desperate to escape, but the tracks followed, always a haunting reminder of my unseen stalker. Night fell like a curtain, plunging the woods into darkness. I fumbled with my headlamp, its beam a feeble shield against the engulfing blackness. The trees, once majestic, now loomed over me like grotesque monsters, their branches clawing at the sky. I was lost, both in direction and in mind, the isolation eating away at my sanity. I stumbled upon a small clearing, the moonlight casting an eerie glow on the snow. It was there that I finally saw him, a figure shrouded in darkness, standing at the edge of the trees. My breath caught in my throat, frozen by fear. He was still, almost as if he were part of the forest itself, a specter born from my deepest fears. The silence was deafening, broken only by the hammering of my heart. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body refused to obey. The figure moved towards me, each step deliberate, unhurried. I could see him now, his face hidden beneath a hood, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. He was the embodiment of my terror, a silent stalker who had haunted my every step. In that moment, I understood the true horror of my situation. I was not just lost in the woods, I was lost in a nightmare from which there was no waking. The man, a manifestation of my darkest fears, was not just following me, he was a part of me, a shadow I could never outrun. I don't remember how long I stood there, frozen in terror. Time lost its meaning, the moments stretching into an eternity of fear. When I finally found the strength to move, it was too late. The man was upon me, his hands cold as death, pulling me into the darkness. I woke to the sound of my own screams, the echoes of my terror reverberating through the empty forest. The man was gone, but the fear remained, a constant companion in the silent woods. I skied on, driven by a desperate hope of finding a way out, but the forest was endless, a labyrinth of my own making. As the days passed, the line between reality and madness blurred. I saw the man everywhere, in the shadows, in the snow, always watching, always waiting. The isolation was no longer a solace, but a sentence, punishment for a sin I could not remember. I write these words as a warning, a testament to the horror that lurks in the silence of the woods. If you ever find yourself skiing alone in a secluded area, beware the silent stalker. He is the echo of your darkest fears, a reminder that in the vast, empty wilderness, you are never truly alone.